So today I'm joined by Caleb Compton, who is the author of a book of rather strange animals. Welcome, Caleb.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, my understanding is that while you were still in college, you created this Twitter account to highlight obscure and bizarre creatures.
Yes.
Right? So what was the impetus for this?
Well, I've always been fascinated by the natural world, and I think my interest started in this whilst watching nature documentaries by Sir David Attenborough and reading books about wildlife with my parents. This interest spurred me on to create this Strange Animals Twitter account where I post photos and facts of lesser known species from around the world. So I started with just a handful of followers, but it's now grown into one of the most popular animal accounts on Twitter. So along with two other Twitter accounts, I now have a following of around 200,000 people. So I decided to write a book based on this account to highlight the conservation issues surrounding more obscure species and to expand on some animals already featured on this Twitter account.
Got it. Now, how would you characterize what makes an animal bizarre?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that what makes an animal bizarre is, well, there are a few things actually. So it could be the way an animal looks. So, for example, the Saiga antelope has a really strange nose, which it uses to filter dust out from its environment and to cool its blood in the summer. So it could be the looks of an animal, or it could be what its lifestyle and characteristics. So, for example, the ii, which is an endangered primate found on the island of Madagascar. Middle finger, and it will tap this on the bark of trees, and it will listen to the vibrations made. And whenever it detects a grub, it will bite a hole in the bark with its rat-like teeth, and it will skewer this bug with its claw at the end of the finger, and then pull it out of the bark. So it's a really rare trait in mammals. Another animal that I find really strange, and this is another lifestyle adaptation it has. It's the horned lizard, which can be found in Mexico and the United States. This animal feeds entirely on ants and termites, but the strangest thing about this animal is its defense mechanism. So when it encounters a predator, it will increase the blood pressure in its head, which ruptures the vessels in its eyes and forces out a jet of blood as far as 1.5 meters. So this stream of blood surprises predators and tastes disgusting, which gives the lizard plenty of time to escape. And the lizard's blood tastes particularly bad for canine predators. So I think there are different ways I would class an animal as bizarre, but definitely in terms of looks and then their lifestyles as well.
Well, certainly squirting blood out of one's eyes to scare off predators, I would consider that strange as well. And I'm very fortunate that we humans don't do that.
Yes, definitely.
Now, it sounds like you have an incredible database of these very interesting animals. And of course, I'm sure that as you look at and study these various different species, every one of those, whether strange or not, they're interesting in themselves, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, sorry.
And so I guess my question is, I'm sure the challenge of creating this book was what to include and what to exclude. So how did you go about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess when I started writing my book, I had a big database to choose from from my Twitter account. So I'd already put in a lot of research to make that account and to post the different animals on there. So when it came to writing my book, I went through a long list of animals that I'd already featured on the Strange Animals Twitter, and sort of made a big list, and then I had to narrow it down. I wanted to include animals from, well, not only mammals but fish and bugs, all sorts of different types of animals. So I picked a few from different evolutionary areas, I guess, and just worked from there, really. But I had to narrow down the list quite a bit, because there's so many that I thought are worthy of talking about. So there's definitely a potential of maybe creating another book on this. So there's so many other animals that I would love to write about.
Yeah, absolutely. Now on Twitter, can you recall maybe like the top couple of animals that you mentioned on Twitter where it just had an incredible organic, following, likes, or just engagement?
Well, I think the most popular in terms of going viral was a tweet about the vaquita. So this is a critically endangered porpoise, which is found in a small part of the Gulf of California. Scientists believe that this species is now down to just a dozen individuals, and it's likely to become extinct by the end of the year. Yet many people have never heard of this creature, and the threats and conservation efforts are not well known. So the vaquita has suffered a rapid population loss due to illegal gillnet fishing, where a lot of individuals have been accidentally killed as bycatch. So when I tweeted this one a couple of years back, I posted a photo of this species and urged people to donate to the Viva Vaquita charity, which is fighting to save this species. And I tweeted this on Save the Vaquita Day, and the post went viral actually with over 60,000 retweets, and I think it reached around 5 million people. So many people commented on the post saying that they donated to the charity and signed the petition. So I think that shows the potential that social media has to sort of inspire people, and that's why I love tweeting about these animals.
And do you feel like the response was more to the fact of the way the animal looked or behaved, or was it the fact that it was literally going to be extinct within just a few months, if not within the year?
Yeah, I think this one was more shocking in terms of how endangered it is, and how we may lose the species in the next year or so. So I think that's what caused it to become viral. But there's other tweets that I've had. So the bearded vulture, which is a really cool looking bird from the mountains of Europe and Africa and Asia. This bird feeds entirely on bones, and I posted a video of the bird eating this huge bone, and that one also went viral and had a few thousand retweets. I think this one, it was just very strange to see this happening. So that was that probably went viral for that reason.
That kind of reminds me of my wife. Whenever we do occasionally have meat, she loves to eat the bones more so than the meat itself. So maybe
really?
She's related. Now, let's talk a little bit about the book in terms of who is this targeted towards.
So I think this book is aimed for anyone with an interest in animals and nature, or anyone who wants to learn more about the natural world and the amazing creatures that we share it with. Children would enjoy the photos and illustrations, and the text is written in a way that I think is accessible to everyone, even those with limited scientific. I think most people are fascinated by the natural world, and the popularity of recent shows such as Planet Earth 2 and Our Planet proves this. I think the best way to make people care about conservation is to show them the beauty of nature first, and then explain its fragility and why it needs protecting. I think Our Planet on Netflix did this really well, and this was also my goal when I was writing a book of rather strange animals.
This is beautiful. And like I said before the interview, that I'd love to connect you with some of the people that are exactly doing something to that extent. And I think collaboration with you would be fantastic. I want to talk about one of the endangered species. And they are, I suppose, bizarre and strange in their own ways. They're called the human beings. And climate change is very much putting the humans at risk. Now, just to put things in perspective, Earth has been around for millions of years, and Earth will continue to be around for millions of years. The question isn't about whether Earth will be around, but rather humans and the animals within it will be around. How does your highlighting some of these interesting animals also point to what's happening on a bigger scale with climate change?
Well, climate change has had and will have a devastating impact on animal populations around the world. The IPCC has warned that an average temperature rise of 1.5 degrees C might put 20 to 30% of species at risk of extinction. If the Earth warms by more than 2 degrees, the majority of ecosystems will suffer. So rising sea levels will wipe out entire islands, all of the flora and fauna contained on them. Natural disasters are becoming more frequent, and habitat loss as a result of carbon emissions is increasing. So for animals that are not able to migrate to more favourable areas, such as polar bears or Asian elephants, this will result in their extinction. Turtles are an example of an animal that is very sensitive to climate change and rely on the temperature of the sand to control the gender of their offspring. As temperatures rise, more eggs hatch as females, leading to a skewed population where females can greatly outnumber males, threatening the turtle's genetic diversity and survival. Rising sea levels will also have a huge impact on their fragile nesting sites. Coral reefs are often referred to as the rainforests of the sea. These only make up 0.1% of the ocean's overall area, but they provide a home for a quarter of all marine species. But tragically, corals are also extremely vulnerable to changes in climate. An increase in carbon dioxide in the oceans leads to acidification and a rise in temperature, resulting in the loss of huge areas of reef. This is not only going to affect the species that live there, but there will also be damaging effects to human populations if we lose these reefs. Almost 300 million people benefit from coral reefs, relying on them for food and medicine and income. So they also protect coastlines from the effects of hurricanes and storms. So if we lose these reefs, then we lose an invaluable natural resource and thousands of species of marine animals in the process. Coral reefs have declined by half over the past several decades, and the IPCC report says that they may decline by a further 80% at a rise of 1.5 degrees, which we are already on course to hit. At a 2-degree rise, the reefs could virtually disappear. Many other ecosystems are threatened by rising temperatures, including mangroves, tundra, and the Arctic. So it goes without saying that if we lose these unique ecosystems, then countless other species will also vanish from existence in the process.
Now, how do you rationalize for those people that may somewhat kind of get the impact of climate change, like what you're talking about, ocean acidification, the loss of coral reef, and that has impacts to clean, breathable oxygen? How do you help rationalize to some people that may give a nod to the fact that maybe there are some issues around climate change? However, it's not clear to them as to why they should care about these lesser known, obscure, strange animals that they may never encounter in their lives. Why is it so important to protect them?
Well, I think it's so important to raise awareness of lesser known species that are threatened with extinction. Everyone is aware of the plight of the tiger or the giant panda, but who knows about the endangered purple frog or the Saiga antelope, which is at the brink of extinction. We are losing thousands of these more obscure animals due to human activities, and we hardly ever hear about them on the news. So this is why I wrote this book, to educate people about the impact we are having on the different populations of animals. According to the WWF, over 10,000 species are lost every year, a figure that is between 1,000 and 10,000 times higher than the natural extinction rate, which is the rate of loss before humans existed. Earlier this month, the IPBES estimated that around 1 million species of plants and animals are threatened with extinction as a result of human activity. We are in the 6th mass extinction event, which is the Holocene extinction, the result of anthropogenic impacts. But we hear very little about this and about the more obscure animals. So one example was the vaquita that I talked about earlier. I think this gained a lot of traction on Twitter because it was relatively unheard of, and when people realized how close to extinction it actually was, I think it really resonated with them.
Well, I think the message is clear, which is that no matter how obscure these animals may seem, the reality is everything is interrelated and interlinked. So when the chains that makes up the ecology starts to break apart, that chain effectively has a direct impact to humanity as well. Our food systems, for example, you just take a simple example of bees. If the bee species were to die and can't pollinate, that's going to have a direct impact on our ability to harvest, have biodiversity in terms of the kinds of foods that we can actually gain from agriculture. So I think it's important for us to understand that it's not just one species, but it's all the species, and it is our responsibility as human beings that are at a level that other animals are not, to protect the rest of the animals that cannot speak or to advocate for themselves. So how can people use social media to help? And more specifically, what would you like for listeners to do?
Well, I think there are many ways people can help out to conserve endangered species. Of course, donations help out a lot. So I would urge people to maybe donate more to conservation projects that are working on lesser known creatures rather than famous ones such as tigers or elephants. Although these projects are doing amazing work, there are many smaller projects that really struggle with funding. Another great thing people can do is donate their time to charities. There are many local conservation projects that people can get involved in, and they're always looking for volunteers to assist them in a variety of ways. So I contacted Devon Wildlife Trust, which is my local conservation charity, and I asked if I could assist them with their projects. So they let me help out with their social media and with mapping for the Devon Greater Horseshoe Bat Project, which is a project that aims to protect a rare species of bat in the southwest of England. The conservation projects are always looking for people who are willing to donate their time. And if you have an interest in this, I would advise getting in contact with a local project and finding out how you can help. Even just taking part in an event like a beach clean every now and then would make a huge difference. I would also say I would encourage people to donate to. I would encourage people to read up on climate change and to do some research into the crisis that biodiversity is facing. So sign petitions and go to marches to show to the government that we demand action to be taken to prevent further extinctions. We all need to realise that this is arguably the most important issue in all of our lives at the moment, because what we do now will shape humanity's future as well as the future of millions of other species.
What would you like to do as it relates to conservation of animals?
Well, what I'm doing at the moment is looking for a graduate job. I'd really like to get involved in more in conservation. So, like I said, I've been volunteering at the Devon Wildlife Trust, but I would love to forge a career in this area in conservation. So that's what I'm looking to get into. I'm also toying with the idea of maybe writing another book. So another book about strange animals or nature in general, or maybe even about extinct animals, actually, because there's a lot of really interesting animals that are no longer here, and I'm really fascinated with this as well. That's another one of my Twitter accounts it's called Extinct Animals, so it highlights all the weird dinosaurs and even mammals that have become extinct recently. So I'd love to write another book maybe on that as well.
Sounds great. And how can people follow you on social media?
So they can follow me on Twitter. So my accounts on there are Strange Animals, which that one is the one that I've written a book about. There's also Extinct Animals, and a third one called Nature is Weird. So they're all on there. I'm also on Instagram as Strange Animals, but not as the other two yet. But I'm looking to get into that one as well.
Perfect. So today I've been joined by Caleb Compton, author of a book of rather strange animals. Caleb, thank you for joining today.
Thank you very much for having me.